I must be crazy. What am I thinking? Starting a YouTube channel? That's just nuts. I mean, it's so much work. And why would anyone do this? I don't know. Everyone's going to think I'm crazy. You know what? There are a million reasons not to do a thing. There's only one to do it. Because I want to. Let's do this thing. Hello and welcome to Midnight's Lair. My name is Erik. Sometimes I'm known as Midnight. I'm 57 years old and I live in the Montreal area of Quebec, Canada. The only reason I bring up my age is because I've been involved with role-playing games for the better part of my life. A long, long time. 44 years to be exact. My love of role-playing games began when I was 13 years old. Back in 1981. 2 short years after the release of the original hardback AD&D First Edition Player's Handbook. More specifically, around the release of the hardback for the Fiend Folio. Now, I don't know about you, but the first time I laid eyes on a role-playing game product, it was, for lack of a better word, magical. When I glimpsed the cover art for that now infamous Holmes Basic box set with the wizard and the arch and the red dragon in the cave and the knight, I was in love. I knew I had to have it. I snatched it off the shelf and I ran to my parents. And I knew in my heart of hearts that if I didn't get that game right then and there, I would be forever and irrevocably miserable. Now, that's hyperbolic language. No question about it. It is. But that's how 13-year-olds think sometimes. And I was a 13-year-old at the time, and that's how I thought. Now, I know it's hard to picture me as a 13-year-old right now. But I was one, and he's still in there, and maybe a little too close to the surface for some people. Now, I'll never know what my life would have been like had my parents not grudgingly agreed to buy the game that day. But I know for sure it wouldn't have turned out the same. I wouldn't have met the friends I've met. I wouldn't have had the experiences I've had. I wouldn't have the stories that I can tell. And I certainly wouldn't have met my wife, who was introduced to me through a friend I met through gaming. So, role-playing games have been very, very good to me in my life. And I love it. And I want to spread that enthusiasm. I want to help rekindle that passion for storytelling in others. If you're over 40 like me and you haven't played in a long time, maybe it's time to get back to it. And I want to help you get there. Like many gamers my age, my interest and involvement in the RPG hobby has waxed and waned over the years. Right now, I'm coming out of a long dry spell. I've always had highs and lows, but I'm coming out of a bit of a period of inactivity. Now, I never really lost touch with the hobby. I've spent many, many hours watching YouTube channels covering D&D and other games. I've read articles and blogs and vlogs, and I've been purchasing game systems and adventures and various other things and reading them and digesting them. So the love has always been there. It's just I haven't been active about it. Now, it's been about 10 years since I ran a game, let alone a campaign. Now, I'm finding myself wanting to run a campaign. So I'm going to need to reawaken some long dormant skills. And in the process of doing so, I'm rediscovering my love of the hobby. And I'm doing so at the threshold of my golden years. Ooh, that sounds old. but I don't feel old. Now, I'm preparing to run a campaign for close family and friends, and I need to bring myself back up to speed for the first time in a long time. I have to rediscover skills I had 20 years ago that I haven't really used lately. So I'm scraping the rust off from a lot of years. And that's one of the reasons I'm starting this channel, to share the process of bringing these skills back up to speed and share my thoughts as I go through this journey. Now, I'm hoping we can include things like, brainstorming sessions about various things that I'm facing in the campaign preparation, world and adventure creation. I also enjoy painting minis, so occasionally I may do some mini painting online, maybe through a live stream. Who knows? And terrain crafting. I've recently got into that. I've acquired some of the materials and tools necessary to do that, so I may do some terrain crafting videos. And I'm also hoping to do some recaps of the adventures and exploits that my players are going to have in the campaign they do end up designing. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish here. And I'm hoping to do it in a way that I can help older gamers who might be coming back to the hobby, like myself, or even newer gamers who are discovering the hobby for the first time and are willing to take a little bit of advice from someone who's been around the block a couple times. So that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping to accomplish here on Midnight's Lair. Now, one of the first things I have to do is determine what genre and rule system we're going to be using. This obviously has to be a decision that I come to between my players and myself as to what we're going to play, because that would only be fair, right? So I found out over the last couple of years that I lean more towards what they're calling the OSR, or Old School Revival, or Old School Renaissance, depending on who you listen to. I like the simpler rule systems. I like that they don't have a rule system for every particular situation, and that the GM has a certain amount of latitude to make those decisions as we go along. I think that's more in the feel and style of the way we played back in the day. Of course, fairness has to be there. I mean, you can't have an arbitrary GM, and despite the myth of the killer GM, I've never played under one. So I think that it's a matter of consistency and fair play between the GM and the players. Because remember, the GM, in my opinion, should always be the player's biggest fan. He wants them to succeed, but he's not going to make it a cakewalk for them. He's going to make it challenging, because otherwise there's really no fun in the game. There has to be a challenge. Now, of the genres I'm considering, fantasy is the first. There's a couple reasons for this. Fantasy, there's the largest number of rule systems out there, I think. 2, it's easier to get miniatures for fantasy, and I like painting miniatures. And terrain crafting, a little bit easier in fantasy than it is in any other system. So it sort of fits the needs of the channel of Midnight's Lair. And it's also very popular, and it's the one most people think of when they think of role-playing. Now, within fantasy, I'm considering Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition. It's something we've played a lot of in the past. At least I did anyway. They haven't played. Some of my players will have. And it's a good system. It's got its warts. Yeah, it's got warts. But those can be worked around and house ruled, as long as the house rules are consistent. The next one would be a little bit easier rule set. Not quite as in-depth. Still, few warts. Old School Essentials, which is based on BXD&D. I never really played much BXD&D because although I started with the Holmes Basic Edition, which is very similar, I moved on very quickly to AD&D First Edition. Now, there's one thing that's always bugged me about BXD&D, or BECME D&D, that I'm not crazy about, was the race as class. But I have the Old School Essentials rule books, the advanced ones, which allow you to break race and class apart, which I think is good. It makes sense. It also allows for ascending armor class, which I think is great. I think Ascending Armor Class is one of the best innovations in the last couple of years to D&D. The negative armor classes, the descending armor classes, always were difficult for me. Now, the next one is the Fantasy Trip. It's more of a point-buy system. It's a very old system. Came out originally as a replacement for the combat and magic system in D&D, written by Steve Jackson Games. It was in limbo for many, many years due to rights, and it was between him and Metagaming. But he got the rights back a couple years back, and he reissued a new printing of it, or essentially a refined printing of it, called the Legacy Edition. I kickstarted that, and I have that, and I love it a lot. I played a very long campaign with a dear friend of mine using those rules, the original versions, very heavily house ruled, and we had a lot of fun. Now, there's some warts to all systems, but this one, there's no clerical magic. Healing is done through what's called a physiker. It's more herbal healing. There's no paladins, there's no classes. It's all point buy. So I like some aspects of that. I have some problems with classes. I find sometimes they can be too restrictive to character concepts, and the Fantasy Trip does take care of that. Now, the last alternative is the new Shadow Dark, which is a class system. So there's that restrictive nature to it. But it's got some innovative mechanics. It's very simple. It seems to be a system that'll get out of the way and let the story be told and still be interesting. It's got a low hit point total, so their death is always on the line when you're, as they say in the Princess Bride, death is always on the line when you're dealing with a Sicilian, or with Shadow Dark. Now, so those are my choices, and I will admit that right now the two big contenders are Shadow Dark and the Fantasy Trip for their different approaches. My biggest concern right now with Shadow Dark is that because it's a level-based system and the progression, I'm worried, and I'm looking to do a long-term campaign. So, or at least build a world that it can be used long-term. And I'm wondering if, because it goes from levels 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 20 as per typical, characters won't progress too quickly. So that's my main concern with that one. But I will admit that right now Shadow Dark is the leading contender between the two. Now, another genre I could do, and there's only one really option for me in this one, is science fiction. And for me, it would be, if I was going to run that, it would be Star Wars D6 by West End Games. Now, it's out of print. It's available some places on the web, if you look hard enough for it. But I have a lot of the books. At least I have everything I need to run it. So I could use that. But not everyone, Star Wars isn't everyone's cup of tea. It's very much my cup of tea, but not everyone's. Now, I could also run superheroes. I love superheroes. I've played in a 20-year-long campaign under my dear friend, P. Mikey. I ran it for a very long time too, and I love it. The only thing holding me back is that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Because the way I play and the way we've gotten used to playing is we illustrate every character, every villain. We design the home base city. There's a lot of background to do first, and it's hard to ask players to invest in it and help you do the work. And a lot of players just aren't willing to do that, and I understand it completely. I went through a period where I was not very willing to put in that level of work either. But I'm coming around to that myself as a player. So I can understand that. So as much as I love it, as much as I want to do it, I find that without some serious help in crafting the world and the setting and getting that going, probably won't happen in the near future. The last one would be the horror genre. Now, I'm lucky enough to, I love horror movies. I have a deep knowledge of all things paranormal. It's one of my other hobbies. And I have Chill, which is a fantastic old school game by Pacesetter Games, then produced by Mayfair, and then Growling Door Games. And it's gone through a few hands. I have all the versions of it so far. And it's a good system. And it handles more the Universal movie monster type monsters rather than Cthulhu. I never really got into the Cthulhu because the cosmic horror genre doesn't really do it for me. I'm more of a, I guess, grounded folklore, Universal movie monster kind of horror guy, and that really fits the bill. So that would be an option. The other option in the horror genre would be Vampire the Masquerade or any of the old World of Darkness games. I've reacquired the 25th anniversary books. They're beautiful. I have them all. And I'd be willing to play something in any one of those games. Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Changeling, Wraith. Although I'm more partial to, let's say, Vampire and Mage than Werewolf. Werewolf is good, but it's not my cup of tea. Changeling is out there, and Wraith just seems a little bit too depressing. I don't know. And I have a good friend who worked on some of those. He worked on Wraith specifically, Lucian Sulban, and he did some source books for the Vampire the Masquerade game. He did Montreal by Night and Constantinople by Night. And we played for, I think, 6 years with Lucian in Vampire the Masquerade. Had a blast. It was great. So those are the genres I'm considering. And right now, out of all of them, I think for ease of use and for breadth of things I can do here for the channel and for my players, I'm thinking Shadowdark might actually win out on this one. So I'm going to proceed as if Shadowdark is my game of choice. And if I change, I'll let you guys know. Now, if you have any questions or any suggestions, I'd be glad to hear them. So, if anything we've done here, if you're interested, please stick around, like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. The channel can use all the help it can get right now. And we'll see you in the funny papers. Till next time, I'm Erik, Midnight. Bye.